Okay, so the study this week in Yeshivat Elimelech is dedicated in memory of John Billenberg on the occasion of his Yortzeit, and we'll go right into the 18th blessing. So technically, we should have been done, but of course, we discussed the blessing that was added for the minim. So the source for, according to the Gemara in Megillah, where it talks about the order of the prayers, is that after Avodah, after the service of the temple, where we thanked Hashem for having the temple and having the opportunity to pray instead of the temple, we also have to give actual thanks. And probably the most common offering at the time of the temple was the Thanksgiving offering, because most people did not sin, and if they did sin, there was if there wasn't a karet that was attached to it, then you didn't bring a sin offering. A lot of people brought olah, but the todah was a whole family gathering, and the Talmud talks about a few times why todah is so special. So after the word zevach, which means to sacrifice, so say todah, which means give thanks. And also later in the chapter, again, he says, Zoveach todah yechabdeneni. So we have to thank Hashem for all the things that we have. And I forgot to add the third source, but it's one of the most incredible things that I learned only about 12 years ago. When Achan took from the loot of Jericho, and Joshua realized that there was a sin, and 36 men died in the battle because of that taking of the loot. So after they did a lottery to find out who the actual culprit was, Yoshua told Achan, "Ten todah, give thanks." And he didn't mean it in the idea of todah like we have it today, but rather in the meaning of vidui, of confessing your sin. And so the most incredible thing, I think, in Judaism, and I learned it the hard way, because now I write a gratitude list, and because I needed to get away from certain things, is that confessing your sin, or confessing even just to God, is a way of recognizing where I have to fix something. And so I can give thanks to Hashem that He gave me the brains to do that and to correct things and that's how those two words are related. But as far as I know, that's the only time that it's written like that, with the same exact word as Todah, and everybody knows Todah Rabbah. The last verse that is related to our blessing is the only time in the whole Tanakh that it says morning, evening, morning, and afternoon in that order, and also with these words, because there's Shachar and Erev and other words, but Erev Avoker v'Tzorayim Asicha ve'emeh v'Yishma Koli. So David says to Hashem that he has prayed 3 times, and so the rabbis had to add those 3 words somewhere in the Shmoneh Esrei, because we have to basically acknowledge that we have the right to do it 3 times a day, and maybe even the obligation. So the differences in the actual wordings are very minor. The Ashkenaz modim anachnu לך שאתה Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avotenu, tzur chayenu without saying tzurenu tzur chayim like the Sfaradim. Magen Ishenu is the same for everybody. Atahu ledor v'dor l'derecha u'seper tzadkecha. So the question is, you are from generation and generation, or is it you are, and from generation to generation, we will thank you and say your praise? So that's a question really in grammar, because there is no punctuation. So here in the English, it says, we will give thanks to you and recount your praise for our lives, which are, sorry, that's already the next one. So deliverance in every generation, midor lador. And at the end, we'll see what the Panim Yafot says about dor lador. And we give thanks for our life that is in your hands. And we say Be'elchaf Kidruchi, which is also in Tehillim. And Nisecha Shebechol Imanu, that the miracles that happen every day with us. And Ifratecha V'Toratecha Shebechol Et, every time, evening, morning, and afternoon, like we said. That's a twist, a positive twist, on one of the last verses of Eicha, of Lamentations, where Jeremiah says, "Chasdei Hashem kilo tamnu, kilo chalu rachamav," that it is only because of Hashem's kindness, loving kindness, that we are still here and we still survived. And so those two frames, the rachamim and the chesed, are mentioned. The other people, the other nusachim, either add another key or remove it. But those two ideas are that in every generation we recognize your miracles and we give thanks to you. So again, I don't have a good solution for this question. If it's you are Ledol Vadol, forever and ever, or from every generation, or every generation we will give thanks to you. And then instead of and the last but not least, the Sfaradim, again, the same idea. They actually put the comma before the Dor Vador, so that helps, but I don't know if in all the Sfaradim nusachs it is that way, so the difference would be, again, it's either Hashem has always been our rock and our protector and our shield in every generation, or in every generation we will give thanks to you and sing your praises. And so the last thing that I wanted to look at was why is it so difficult for us to understand, why is it so difficult for us to understand that there are miracles? And so this is what the Peninei says. I quoted it in English because the Hebrew was in an old print from 150 years ago. So the Peninei is the one who wrote the shoot in, I think it was Krakow, in the end of the 19th century. And he has a very interesting perush on the Chumash. So even though we do not know or recognize many of the happenstance, in quotation marks, that we experience to be miracles and protection from evil, and we might even think that these are just the normal and natural way things are, Hashem tells us that there will always be two angels on our side, as it is written in Psalm 91, for he, capital H, will order his angels to guard you wherever you go. And Psalm 91 is my favorite chapter, I think in the whole Tanakh, because it talks about all the different things that we are protected from. So let's just end with this quote from the Gemara, which emphasizes that, and then I'll explain something personal. So, V'hainu damar Rabbi Eliezer. So this statement is identical to what Rabbi Eliezer used to say. Mai dechtiv Tehillim 72:18. Oseni flot b'dot levado. That's the chapter that talks about the miracles that were in the desert. So blessed be Hashem, the God of Israel, who does wondrous things alone, and blessed is his glorious name forever. What does this mean, that God does wondrous things alone? It means that even the one for whom the miracle was performed does not recognize the miracle that was performed for him. So we might be walking down the street, and I'll give a silly example because it's from the Far Side cartoon. He shows this man walking leisurely in the street on the sidewalk, and there's a piano halfway down from the 10th floor about to fall on him. And so obviously none of us have ever heard of a piano falling on somebody from that height, but the concept is that there's so many things in our lives that we might say it's just a coincidence, or it's just a happenstance, and really it's divine providence. So if you I was upset recently because I was going to be late somewhere, and then I met somebody on the way that I haven't seen in a very long time, and I just seeing me, for them it was lifting up their life, and we were really happy to touch base. But even more so, I was walking back from a neighborhood almost 2 hours away on Friday night, and it was raining, so I stood under this overpass to catch my breath a little bit, and And then I'm walking down the street, uh, finally familiar with where I was, and a mosquito sat on my neck to bite me, and I smacked it. I stopped to smack it for a millisecond, and because I stopped, the car that was pulling out from the driveway in front of me wouldn't have seen me and would have killed me. And it was only because I stopped, Hashem sent that stupid mosquito to save my life. So but I don't know how many other millions of times that happened. So I'm just giving that as an example of how Hashem arranges for things to be in the exact moment. And no computer in the world today can control 8 billion people. So there must be Hashem because there's no other explanation for how these things work. And so I think that that's why we give thanks every day and recognize that some of these things are really, really big miracles. So we'll stop here. If anybody has questions.